The project studied the entitlements of national groups of refugees in fields such as documentation, education, healthcare, housing, employment. Desk and field research were undertaken to produce a 322-page report on these entitlements on the practical access to them by the refugees. The long report that exists in English only give rise to a shorter summary, as well as to 3 policy papers in both Arabic and English. The research findings were also the basis for producing awareness raising and capacity building materials that were later used in corresponding events. These events were necessary because research had revealed that entitlements often existed in law, yet at times, neither refugees nor officials were aware of their existence. The collaboration between the EU delegation in Cairo and CMRS in the Refugee Entitlements Project was very fruitful because its outputs could easily be used in policy formulation and implementation. As an academic institution, CMRS and AUC produced knowledge, which was made possible by EU funding. Actual policy formulation and implementation is obviously not the domain of CMRS or AUC. The function of academic institutions is to produce knowledge and ideas. This is the core idea of the project we are launching today. The Egyptian Migration Hub is about the creation of a forum where ideas for migration policy formulation and implementation could be submitted and discussed. This is an open forum for government ministries, agencies, and departments to make use of if they wish to. In this forum, academics can present their ideas and proposals and respond to the inquiries raised about the different migration and refugee policy areas. Civil society organizations can talk about their grassroots experiences. Concerned international intergovernmental organizations and multilateral and bilateral donors can offer their technical and financial support. International non-governmental organizations can contribute their experiences and draw attention to the issues they encounter. In addition to the forum it represents, workshops and training sessions are envisaged in the Egyptian Migration Hub project, including training to media about migration and refugee issues. The Refugee Entitlement Project was, as its name indicates, about migration in its broadest sense to Egypt. The Egyptian Migration Hub project will also be open, if the wish exists, to issues of Egyptian international migration, which is of great importance to the labor market, to the economy, and to development in Egypt. Maximizing the benefits of this international migration, including financial remittances and their use, and the protection of Egyptian migrants could be addressed by academics and other participants in the forum. The Egyptian Migration Hub is a short-term experimental project. Its success depends on the participation of the concerned actors and on the ideas they produce and actions they propose. I do not wish to make a long speech. I just wanted to give you a succinct idea about the collaboration between the EU delegation in Cairo and CMRS AUC. I reiterate my welcome to all the audience and express my deep appreciation to Ambassadors Badawi and Berger for their presence with us this morning. Thank you very much for your kind attention. let me ask Ambassador Badawi to make us the pleasure of addressing the audience.
Thank you very much, Dr. Awad. Seeing the translation booth, I couldn't resist the temptation of delivering my speech in Arabic. السيد السفير كريستيان برجر رئيس بعثة الاتحاد الأوروبي في مصر، السيد الدكتور إبراهيم عوض مدير مركز دراسات الهجرة واللاجئين بالجامعة الأمريكية في القاهرة، السيدات والسادة الحضور، أود في البداية أن أعرب عن سعادتي للمشاركة في فعالية إطلاق محفل الهجرة المصري بالمشاركة بين مركز دراسات الهجرة واللاجئين التابع للجامعة الأمريكية في القاهرة وبعثة الاتحاد الأوروبي، وهو المحفل المصري الأول من نوعه الذي يهدف إلى خلق منصة فكرية تضم الجهات الأكاديمية والحكومية وغير الحكومية المعنية بقضايا الهجرة لتبادل الآراء والبيانات والخبرات حول موضوعات حوكمة الهجرة في مصر والمنطقة. ففي ظل ما تفرضه التحديات الدولية المتعاقبة من ضغوط يجب أخذها في الاعتبار أثناء تناول قضايا الهجرة كتراجع معدلات التنمية المستدامة والآثار الاقتصادية لجائحة كورونا وتغير المناخ وندرة المياه وغيرها، أصبحت هناك حاجة ماسة لربط الأجندة البحثية بأولويات الحكومة في مجال الهجرة وتقديم الدعم اللازم للجهات المختلفة في إطار اتضاعها بدورها في هذا الصدد لضمان أن تكون السياسات التي يتم تبنيها قائمة على المعلومات والأدلة الدقيقة. تولي مصر أهمية خاصة لقضايا الهجرة أخذاً في الاعتبار خصوصية موقعها الجغرافي واعتبارها دولة مصدر لحوالي 10 مليون مهاجر ومقصد لأكثر من 6 أو 8 أو 9 ملايين مهاجر أو لاجئ، إلى جانب كونها دولة معبر للمهاجرين من أفريقيا إلى أوروبا. وتتبنى الحكومة المصرية في تعاملها مع ملف الهجرة مقاربة شاملة تقوم على الموازنة بين الحد من الهجرة غير الشرعية من وإلى مصر ورفع الوعي المجتمعي بشأن مخاطر الهجرة غير الشرعية والتعامل مع الأسباب الجذرية لها مع التركيز على المجتمعات المصدرة لها من جانب، وكذا تعظيم المكاسب الخاصة بالهجرة وتعزيز دورها في التنمية المستدامة وتوفير قنوات آمنة للهجرة النظامية ولهجرة الأيدي العاملة من جانب آخر. وقد كانت مصر من الدول التي انخرطت في صياغة العهد الدولي للهجرة، وذلك إيماناً منها بضرورة التكاتف على المستويين الإقليمي والدولي لمواجهة الأسباب الجذرية للهجرة غير النظامية وتأكيد أهمية دفع الجهود المشتركة نحو تحقيق التنمية المستدامة ومواجهة الفقر وزيادة التوظيف بما في ذلك من خلال تعزيز مسارات الهجرة الآمنة والنظامية. وتعزيزاً لتنفيذ العهد الدولي على المستوى الوطني، قامت الحكومة المصرية بإنشاء لجنة وطنية لمتابعة تنفيذه بمشاركة كافة ممثلي الجهات الحكومية، فضلاً عن تعزيز الروابط بين تنفيذه وبين تحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة ورؤية مصر 2030. كما شاركت بفعالية في المراجعات الإقليمية والدولية للعهد، وقامت كذلك باستعراض الجهود الوطنية ومشاركة أفضل ممارساتها في تنفيذ العهد خلال انعقاد المنتدى الدولي لمراجعة الهجرة في مايو الماضي. وقد جاء انضمام مصر لمجموعة الدول الرائدة في تنفيذ العهد الدولي للهجرة بمثابة شهادة على ما توليه مصر من اهتمام لتعزيز تنفيذ العهد ودفع وضعية المهاجرين. سيدات والسادة، تعتز الحكومة المصرية بمساهمات 10 مليون مصري بالخارج في دفع التنمية المستدامة سواء في وطنهم أو بالدول المقيمين بها، وتواصل العمل على دفع مصالحهم وحماية حقوقهم من خلال تقديم وتطوير الخدمات القنصلية المقدمة لهم وضمان مشاركتهم في جهود التنمية على المستوى الوطني. كما تستمر مصر في استضافة المهاجرين واللاجئين انطلاقاً من مسؤولياتها الإنسانية والقانونية وكرم شعبها المعهود. وتتبع مصر نهجاً يتأسس على احترام حقوق الإنسان المهاجر وضمان حصوله على الخدمات الأساسية وفقاً للموارد المتاحة وضمان عدم ترك أحد يتخلف عن الركب. وعلى هذا النحو حرصت الحكومة المصرية على استفادة المهاجرين المقيمين لديها من الحملات الصحية كحملة 100 مليون صحة للكشف المبكر عن وعلاج فيروس سي وغيره من الأمراض غير السارية، فضلاً عن تقديم أوجه الدعم للأكثر تأثراً بجائحة فيروس كورونا وتضمين المهاجرين في البرنامج الوطني لتوفير اللقاحات. وقد توجت هذه الجهود من خلال علاقات الشراكة والتعاون المتميزة بين مصر والأمم المتحدة، حيث قام الجانبان في نوفمبر 2021 بإنشاء أول منصة مشتركة للمهاجرين واللاجئين في مصر، والتي تهدف لتعزيز الخدمات المقدمة لهم وتقييم احتياجاتهم وحشد الموارد بالتعاون مع شركاء التنمية لتقديم هذه الخدمات وبما يسهم في تنمية المجتمعات المستضيفة. من جانب آخر، أطلقت الحكومة المصرية أول استراتيجية وطنية لمكافحة ومنع الهجرة غير الشرعية 2016-2026، والتي ركزت على التوعية بمخاطر الهجرة غير النظامية وتوفير البدائل التنموية الإيجابية، فضلاً عن مواجهة جرائم الإتجار بالبشر واستغلال وتهريب المهاجرين. السيدات والسادة، إدراكاً لما تمثله الهجرة من حقيقة قائمة بحكم التاريخ والعولمة والتفاعلات البشرية، وانطلاقاً من خصوصية ملف الهجرة بالنسبة لمصر، فإن التعامل معها يضع المسؤولية على عاتقنا جميعاً للتعاون الجاد من أجل إيجاد السبل والآليات المثلى للتصدي للمخاطر المرتبطة بالهجرة وتعظيم الاستفادة منها. ومن هنا يأتي أهمية الدور الذي يمكن أن يلعبه المحفل المصري للهجرة كحلقة وصل بين الجهات الأكاديمية والبحثية والمجتمع المدني في مصر والعالم من ناحية، والجهات الحكومية المعنية بموضوعات الهجرة من ناحية أخرى، وذلك لتوسيع نطاق التعاون بين كافة الشركاء المعنيين في الدولة وتفعيل منهج Whole of Government Whole of Society Approach للتعامل مع قضايا الهجرة من منظور شامل يراعي الجوانب الحقوقية والتنموية والأمنية للحد من الهجرة غير الشرعية ومعالجة أسبابها الجذرية والبناء على العناصر الإيجابية للهجرة النظامية ودورها في التنمية الشاملة. شكراً جزيلاً.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Badawi, for your address. And let me ask Ambassador Berger to address the audience. And I think after your address, we'll have an intervention of Dr. Lushner from Brussels,
yes.
Online.
Thank you very much. Ambassadors, dear Professor, colleagues, it's a great pleasure being here opening the launch event of this ambitious EU-Egypt Migration Hub. Now, let me just give you a few figures. Every year around this time, UNHCR publishes the latest refugee figures. So these figures in the last years have gone up. I think we're now at 70 million worldwide refugees, migrants more than 200 million. And this has been a steady development over many years. In my own professional career, I've been dealing with migrants and refugees ever since I started my first job in Gaza in a refugee camp. And I'm afraid this refugee camp is still there 35 years later. But not only that, at the time, the numbers of refugees and migrants in this part of the world was not as big as it is today. You have many more nationalities, many more people who have become migrants and refugees because of many reasons and many situations. So therefore, this project that we are supporting here, in my view, is very important to look into the reasons in the causes of migration. And it is also another achievement, another milestone of the EU-Egypt positive and constructive dialogue on migration. The European Union remains committed to work together with Egypt as a key partner in dealing with a variety of migration, security, and humanitarian challenges affecting both Europe and North Africa. The Migration Hub is an idea that comes from discussions we have been having with Professor Awad and a number of EU member states. And it was triggered by the identification of analytical gaps in the field of migration, especially when addressing the 6 pillars of the EU-Egypt migration dialogue, which are aligned to Egypt's encompassing and balanced approach to migration. The Migration Hub can play an important role as a brain trust for the migration community here in Egypt. For the European Union, the support of the Migration Hub is an open, inclusive, multidisciplinary knowledge partnership that draws on government, donors, experts, practitioners, civil society to create and synthesize knowledge for the use by policymakers. The Migration Hub is just newly born. Once grown, it will generate a menu of policy choices based on analytical evidence, evaluation of policies, data collection, and quality control. And I'm looking forward to the general forum meetings, bringing together members of government, academia, policymakers, lawyers, and practitioners to discuss relevant issues on migration, in addition to forum sectorial meetings. In particular, I would like to flag that the European Commission is currently working on talent partnerships in which Egypt features among the countries for regular migration skills. A migration hub could provide support with an academic perspective in this area. In doing so, I'm confident that the migration hub can build also on the work done in the framework of the program towards a holistic approach to labor migration, governance, and labor mobility in North Africa. More can be done on protection. And I would like to refer here to the latest publication on refugees entitlements carried out by the Center for Migration and Refugee Studies. And I hope that the findings can be used for decision makers. Certainly more can be done in terms of research and analysis. Synergies with the Cairo University, in particular the Migration Department, which has recently joined synergies with IOM, is another area of opportunity. The Migration Hub could also address the developments of the forthcoming Household and International Migration Survey in the Mediterranean countries, which we're looking forward to start in the forthcoming period in cooperation with CAPMAS. Smuggling of migrants and trafficking of human beings are key aspects to be studied. Criminal networks exploit people, putting their lives in danger. We need to prioritize the prevention of smuggling and trafficking. Research can contribute with valuable analytical elements. Let me address another key area, such as reintegration, where research could bring a benefit. Reintegration can be enhanced with sustainability and growth. Reintegration is an opportunity for the returnee and for the country if well managed. Research can boost that reflection. The regional dimension of migration is another important building block. Egypt played an important role in 2015 in La Valletta. It provided an added value in the Global Compact of Migration and in the Global Compact on Refugees. It has taken a proactive role in the Khartoum process. Research could bring additional interesting readings of this. Last but not least, we're looking forward to the implementation of the stakeholder trainings, workshops, and media trainings. And I'm confident that synergies with the European Union Asylum Agency can bring added value to those activities. And I will be very honored and pleased to attend the ceremony of certificates to the first batch of students. In launching this ambitious migration hub with my esteemed colleagues of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the American University in Cairo, I would like to recall that the door is open for a Team Europe approach, so to further support the growth of this newly born initiative. And I wish you a successful start of your activities, and I would like to give the floor now, as we heard before, to the Deputy Director General of DG Home, who could not be here with us today, but who has kindly recorded a video message for us. Thank you very much.
Hello to everybody, dear Dr. Awad, dear Ambassador Badawi, dear Ambassador Berger, dear representatives of EU member states, of the Egyptian authorities, of civil society, and of the academic world. It is an honor to address you all on the occasion of the launch of Egypt's migration hub. The hub will certainly provide a benefit and enrich reflections on migration, bringing together the academic perspective with the perspective of practitioners and of government officials to discuss the important topics of migration governance in Egypt and beyond. This work is of high relevance because migration remains very high on our agenda. Last November, Commissioner Ylva Johansson and I had the honor to visit Egypt on the occasion of the third EU-Egypt migration dialogue. And what we witnessed there was a very positive and constructive and realistic atmosphere of partnership and of mutual trust. I'm of course very much looking forward to the next migration dialogue, as these dialogues are the primary instrument to discuss migration and find mutually convenient solutions for the challenges we face. One of the milestones of this partnership is the launch of the Migration Hub. We need to manage migration, and we can do so only together. We need to do so to ensure safer and regular migration. Our common goal is to move away from irregular migration towards more regular migration. We on the EU side are reinforcing our efforts for safe, orderly and regular migration to the benefit of all. This includes the launch of so-called talent partnerships, in which Egypt has been included as one of the priority partners. This is of particular importance for the European Union. Europe needs ID professionals, Europe needs doctors and engineers, but Europe also needs cooks and plumbers and truck drivers and welders and bricklayers. 21 EU member states report a severe shortage of nurses. Egypt can be a partner in addressing these shortages. Migration management needs to be seen in a comprehensive manner, looking at its different dimensions, be they related to regular or to irregular migration. One very significant dimension is to fight smugglers and traffickers that are putting people's lives at risk. We have a number of good practices to rely on in this area, with the National Coordinating Committee for Combating and Preventing Illegal Migration and Trafficking in Persons. The ongoing discussion to work on a border management program is another building block to fight trafficking in human beings and the smuggling of migrants. I also welcome the constructive discussions aimed at decreasing regular migration by stepping up returns and looking at sustainable reintegration approaches. The cooperation with the European Union Agency for Asylum is another sign of strong cooperation, which could lead to further enhancing Egypt's role in the area of protection. The Egyptian diaspora can also play an important role in addressing root causes of migration via both mobilizing funds in support of Egypt's 2030 agenda and in providing expertise. Actions and results are important, but equally relevant is to have a common baseline, a common understanding of the context and the policy options that are available to us. This is where the Egypt Migration Hub can be of real value added. I am confident that this Migration Hub will take into account the different dimensions of the EU-Egypt cooperation on migration. Let me conclude by wishing you a very successful conference and a very good start of the work of this newborn Egypt Migration Hub. Thank you very much for your attention.
I wish to thank Ambassador Berger for his address and Dr. Luchner as well for his online address. Thank you very much for the ideas you contributed to this opening, to this launch of the hub. We will now have a presentation about what the hub is by the manager of the project, Ms. Elena Habersky, but let me first thank Ambassador Badawi for his presence. He has to leave us because he has an important commitment. So thank you very much for your presence and for addressing the audience. And I hope we'll have other opportunities to. Thank you. Are you coming here? Maybe.
Good morning, Sabah al-Khair. Your Excellencies, distinguished speakers, honorable guests, welcome to the launch of the Egyptian Migration Hub. On behalf of our director, Dr. Ibrahim Awad, and our associate director, Dr. Maisa Ayoub, I welcome you all here today, and our guests who are joining us online, welcome. My name is Elena Habersky, and I am the project manager of the Egyptian Migration Hub. Before I start today, I would just like to thank my fellow colleagues who without this event would not be possible, Ms. Nasim Hashim, Ms. Zaina Sayam, and Ms. Amina Atef. So thank you. Without them, this would not be possible to be here today. I don't want to take up too much of your time because I know there's a coffee break after. But I just want to reiterate what Dr. Awad and what Ambassador Berger had said about what we're envisioning the Egyptian Migration Hub to be. But as well, we're having two panel discussions today from the international cooperation side, but also from the Egyptian side to discuss how this hub can benefit not only the migrants within Egypt, but those outside of Egypt, as well as the stakeholders. So thank you for being here today. So as Dr. Awad mentioned, after the success and the completion of the Refugee Entitlements in Egypt project, CMRS and the EU delegation in Egypt are collaborating once more on this joint initiative, which we have called the Egyptian Migration Hub, based off of the Mixed Migration Hub, which is in North Africa. So we want to kind of take the experiences, but also make it our own and have an Egyptian flavor to it. So obviously today you're all here for the launch of the eHub. The eHub is intended as a forum for the discussion of issues, for sharing experiences, and deliberating courses of action aimed at maximizing the benefits of international migration for Egypt. The eHub is open to all stakeholders, as we had mentioned, that would like to make use of the forum it represents. These include government ministries, agencies, and departments, but as well, we want to make this a holistic experience and not just include the people who are normally within these types of forums, but also open it up to academics, experts, representatives of international intergovernmental organizations, non-governmental organizations, lawyers, practitioners, and donors are all welcome to participate in the activities of the eHub. These are suggested project structures and functions. Ambassador Berger mentioned a few, but I'll just go through them. So we kind of have an idea of what we're looking at in the next few months. So there'll be general forum meetings. So these will be periodic, and they'll bring together interested representatives and stakeholders to discuss more general or bigger issues of international migration, interlinkages between these issues, and interventions to maximize their benefits and minimize their failings. Then there'll be forum sectoral meetings. So these are a bit more specific. So these will also bring together stakeholders active in specific sectors. And I'll go over the sectors in a bit. Education, health, employment, or different types of training, which allow for the exchange of information and focused discussions of ideas and proposed interventions. There will, of course, be stakeholder trainings. This is something that CMRS has great experience in, and we look forward to conducting these trainings to relevant stakeholders, again, on different migration issues, such as regular migration, external employment, return migration, refugee entitlements from our past project that we had, smuggling of migrants, and trafficking in persons. And I believe we have an expert who will discuss trafficking later today. We will also have workshops. So these will be online discussions amongst experts. And we're hoping for this to also bring in experts from abroad. So to bring in people from outside Egypt who can also show us their expertise and be in contact and dialogue with the Egyptian Migration Hub. One thing that we're very excited about is media trainings. So we are currently conducting a media analysis right now from a period of, I believe, 6 years. How does the media discuss migration? Are there certain topics? Are there certain words that they use that are maybe more negative in connotation? How are they discussing, for example, irregular migration? Are they discussing migration only from Egypt to Egypt? What's going on actually in the media? So once we, finish conducting the media analysis, we will organize training sessions for media personnel and migration issues and governance. Certain thematic areas that we're looking at, but again, these are up for discussion. We're very happy as this will be a forum to discuss other areas, but we're looking at legal migration pathways. As Dr. Luchner said, Egypt is participating in some of these migration pathways for people who have a certain skill set to go to Europe. Protection, of course, refugee entitlements, as I said, which we have a successful background in, media, and global migration governance. But again, we'd love to discuss this later with you in the different panel sessions and to hear your thoughts and opinions. And again, I said I wouldn't take too much of your time and take away from your coffee session. So thank you for your attention, and we look forward to discussing these issues in the 2 thematic panels after the coffee break.
Thank you very much, Elena, for presenting the Egyptian Migration Hub project. I think we are on time. So let me thank again Ambassador Berger for his presence and for his address. And my appreciation also goes to Dr. Johannes Luchner. And as I said, I reiterate my appreciation to Ambassador Badawi. As I said, we are on time. So now we will break for coffee for 15 minutes. And I hope we'll be back at 11:30. So to keep being on time, next session will be about international cooperation in realizing the hub's purposes. We will have Ambassador Naveen Al-Husseini, Mr. Laurent Debec, Ms. Barbara Rambusek, who will intervene online, and my colleague, Mr. Eric Oshla. So now, please have your coffee, enjoy it, and be back at 11:30. Thank you. Good morning again, and my appreciation for your presence again also. And this is the first session, after the opening, the first session of the launch, and the subject of this first session is international cooperation in realizing the hub's purposes. We have listened to a presentation of what the hub is, by the manager of the project. Ambassador Berger also mentioned the purposes of the project. Ambassador Badawi dealt with it, and I also said a few words about it. So among the stakeholders, among the actors that will be invited if they wish to participate in the hub's meetings, activities, are international, intergovernmental, and non-governmental organizations. This will be the international, they will represent international cooperation in realizing the purposes of the hub, as the title of the session is. And therefore, we will listen first to 4 interventions. The first intervention is by Ambassador Naveen El-Husseini, the Assistant Minister of Foreign Affairs for Migration, Refugees, and Combating Human Trafficking. She will talk to us about her concept of international cooperation in realizing the objectives of the hub. And then we will listen to Mr. Laurent Debug, the Chief of Mission of the International Organization for Migration, the UN Migration Agency, what the agency can contribute to the realization of the hub's purposes. We will have an online intervention by Ms. Barbara Rampusek, the Director of Economic Inclusion and Gender in the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. And last but not least, my colleague, Mr. Eric Öschland, the Director of the Office of the International Labour Organization in Egypt, ILO having been the first international organization to have dealt with migration since its establishment in 1919. Mr. Öschland will tell us how and what the ILO can contribute to realizing the purposes of the hub. So without further ado, I will give the floor. Of course, after the interventions, there will be room for some questions. Of course, the questions and the time left to the audience will depend on how long the panelists will speak. So I hope that we'll have a balance between panelists and the audience. Ambassador Husseini, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Dear Dr. Ibrahim Awad, the head of the CMR, Laurent Debug, chief of the IOM mission in Egypt, dear colleague Eric, head of the ILO in Egypt, my dear colleagues and excellences, I'm really glad to take part of this event, and which really reflects the importance of international cooperation and the cooperation among all different stakeholders. As a country that was engaged from an early stage in the negotiations on the GCM, we believe that migration governance in a holistic 360-degree approach can only be achieved by adopting a whole of government, whole of society principle. In the GCM, international cooperation is not actually one of the objectives. It lies in the heart of all the other 22 objectives and in all the principles as well. Because no country can manage migration alone, and migration always should be managed in a way that supports and enhance sustainable development in countries of origin and destination, and for migrants themselves. Needless to say that non-governmental organizations and other partners are vital contributors to the collective commitment to achieving a well-managed migration founded on cooperation and full respect for human rights. There is increasing interest worldwide about migration-related aspects for the wrong reasons, unfortunately. And the negative rhetoric about challenges associated with migration prevails. Yet, thanks to discussions in forums similar to ours today, facts and evidences can be produced and disseminated. Hence, a balanced and positive narrative can be formulated not only in Egypt, but worldwide. For a long time, involved parties have been working in isolation from each other, which often resulted in fragmented and duplicated efforts that are usually of minimal impact. Therefore, coordinating efforts and sharing experiences have the potential of empowering us to devise comprehensive, evidence-based national policies that can go a long way. Distinguished participants, we have all followed discussions during the IMRF a few days ago in New York, where it was clear that cross-sectorial, multi-stakeholder discussions and roles are needed to implement the GCM. To illustrate that further, climate change, for example, is one of the compounded drivers for irregular migration and forced displacement. This phenomena will exacerbate in the next few years. As a result, climate-related issues can no longer be discussed in the ministries of environment, but environmental researchers, financing experts, social scientists are becoming more and more involved in the conversation that we have about migration. Similarly, inclusion of migrants and refugees in provision of basic services requires equal attention to sustainable development, poverty levels, resilience of host communities, and livelihood opportunities, all that need to be factored in at any discussion. On the ground, and given limited resources, the government alone cannot provide all services. Civil society has an outreach on the local level, and that government sees as complementary to its efforts, needs, recognizes, and appreciates. It is for that indispensable role and active engagement that the year 2022 was announced to be the year of civil society. The services and assistance provided by civil society in Egypt to refugees and migrants in coordination with the government and UN agencies is essential to foster integration and social cohesion. The experience they have made showed us that their role and their involvement in the discussions is indispensable. As part of its migration governance efforts, the Egyptian government is exerting efforts to combat all forms of discrimination against refugees and migrants by highlighting their positive contributions to the Egyptian economy, while engaging internationally on discussions related to combating discrimination and xenophobia against migrants. Economic challenges around the world are taking toll on migrants who are being scapegoated and blamed for the lack of jobs. This fact reminds us in Egypt and in other countries around the world about the importance of the involvement of media, as it was presented actually in the presentation about the objectives of the hub. Media also plays a crucial role in raising awareness about the risks of irregular migration, including human trafficking. Private sector is another important stakeholder that must be involved in any platform discussing migration. It plays an important role in different stages of migration cycle. It acts as an employer and is engaged in job creation for refugees and migrants. It should be considered while drafting migration policies, especially when it comes to skill recognition, the identification of skill gaps and shortage of labor supply. They also need to be engaged in ethical recruitment conversation. There is also a very important role that academia can play. Universities and research centers have the ability to create knowledge that can assist the creation of evidence-based policies on the national, regional, and international levels by collecting, analyzing disaggregated data. Last but not least, cooperation with international partners on the bilateral or multilateral level is essential to implement the migration-related commitments of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and ensure safe, regular, and ordered migration. Working with our partners, including UN agencies, the EU, our European partners, and others through different dialogue mechanisms is essential for Egypt, and it's important to create synergies between migration objectives and sustainable development goals. This cooperation helps us providing technical support for public authorities and relevant stakeholders, in addition to offering knowledges and good experiences and best practices. It is based on this conviction that we launched the joint platform for migration and refugees last November as an innovative model of cooperation that aligns the efforts of stakeholders working with migration and refugees and host communities, with a view to formulate interventions that are sustainable and takes into consideration the reality of protracted nature of migration and asylum in Egypt. We believe that the Migration Hub can play a complementary role in this regard. Finally, it's our belief that when it comes to migration governance, everyone needs to be involved. I'm confident that the Migration Hub represents an opportunity for all stakeholders to have a seat on the table, to be part of this important conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Hosseini, for telling us what the efforts of the Egyptian government are, and its concept of international cooperation in the governance and in the management of migration. And you ended up by mentioning the joint platform for migration and refugees. And indeed, to me also, the hub can be complementary and can reinforce the activities of the platform. Let me turn to my friend, Mr. Eric de Boeck, Chief of Mission of IOM. You have, sorry, no, it's Eric Eshla, it's Laurent de Boeck. The one you had, exactly. So, Mr. de Boeck, you have listened to the intervention by Ambassador Hosseini, and she mentioned the Global Compact for Migration. And the Global Compact for Migration, in fact, includes what the policies should be, starting from pathways of regular migration, combating smuggling. So everything is there. And she also mentioned the social development agenda, social development goals, which also are in interaction with the Global Compact for Migration. In addition, Ambassador Hosseini, Ambassador Badawi, and Ambassador Berger mentioned what the objectives of the hub are. What can IOM do to help realize these objectives?
Thank you, Professor Awad, and congratulations for launching the hub today. Indeed, and Ambassador Hosseini, colleagues from the UN and friends. Indeed, we are, I think, quite lucky to be in Egypt, and where we see an engagement, profound engagement of the government as a whole, which is one of the elements of the Global Compact on Migration, but really